Cancer really affected me when a good friend of mine, Mike Saylor, we received a phone call that he had melanoma, and it was one of those where in my lifetime I had had deaths in family, but nobody really that was close to me. To see Mike fight for his life like he did, it was inoperable. It was an inoperable tumor, and Mike was and I coached together at Terre Haute South. He had a great passion for the game of basketball. He was an outstanding basketball mind. He was always thinking ahead of the game, just a pioneer, I guess, so to speak. And but most of all, Mike was a great friend, and he and I had a special bond that for over 30 years, and we worked together. We'd go to lunch, had supervision together. So just when I found out that he had cancer and there was nothing you could do, it started to make me think about it more, how important cancer research is, how vulnerable all of us are, and to be able to put on the Coaches versus Cancer game. Mike is definitely the main reason why I want to do this, how important it is for us to find a cure for cancer, for all cancers out there. Mike is my inspiration behind this night, behind this game, left behind 3 beautiful daughters and a loving wife, and it never took his passion for life, though, never took his passion for people. It may have slowed him down a little bit, but until the very end, Mike was still, basketball was a passion of his. I can remember going to the hospital at Regional Hospital in the last few weeks of his life, and we were talking basketball, talking strategies, just kind of talking about the team that we had here at Cloverdale and how he wanted to be able to see this team, to see this team play, and the passion that I have is one that I think after talking to Mike, I realized that we're on this earth for only a short while, and to try to make a difference and to try to is important for all of us. And I think a night like Coaches versus Cancer, I think is a way that we can give back. We can give back through the basketball community. We can give it back through the Cloverdale community, through our schools. And I think each and every one of us has been touched by someone who has lost a battle to cancer. But that doesn't mean the rest of us can't keep fighting for a cure. And we just want to thank everyone that's come out tonight, students, the faculty, and just the community members, administration that have all put in a lot of time and effort and to this cause. Thank you.
Cancer has unfortunately been a large part of our life. My 2 grandparents that I was really, really close to, Grace and Jim Thomas, both passed away from cancer, and they had a long, drawn-out battle with it. My grandfather went through chemo, did a few things to try to get better, could not beat it, and then my grandmother, shortly after that, also got cancer and passed away pretty rapidly. It's a devastating disease that obviously affects pretty much everyone around us, and unfortunately there hasn't been a cure, but I know they're working on it, and hopefully things like Coaches for Cancer, the benefit, will help to raise funds for that.
My name is Daniel Varnes. My grandfather, Aubrey Moore, passed away from colon cancer. He died when he was 59 years old, and I was only 5. My grandfather was a big man with a big heart, and he was known by a lot of his friends as Big Mo. I don't remember a lot about him because I was so young, but I remember every time I was around him, he made me laugh. He had a great personality and loved his family. Cancer kept me from knowing my grandfather closer, and I look forward to the day I'll see him again.
I'm Mr. Stoltz. I'm the principal of Cloverdale High School, and unfortunately, as most people, cancer's affected me as well as everyone else. I lost my father at the age when he was 49 years old. I was 21 years old, complications related to cancer, and my mother lived to be 54 years old, and both of them are no longer with me, and both were very trying times in my time as well as my family's time. Cancer doesn't discriminate. As most of us, when we grow up, we're going to come across someone or be close or associated to someone that will have cancer, or it'll affect us. I'd like to think that my wife had cancer when she was very young and is very treatable, that she will not have any more complications. But cancer's been close to my home, and I hope that someday we come up with a cure or a way to at least slow it down so that we can, elongate our lives and give people who love us an opportunity to spend quality time with us.
J.J. Wade, Cloverdale High School Athletic Director, and cancer to me is very real. My mother had breast cancer and is a breast cancer survivor. My grandmother also is a breast cancer survivor, and I recently lost an uncle to a rare form of cancer as well. So definitely very real, and excited about this opportunity for our kids in school to participate in this event.
I've really been influenced in the way that I've lived by 2 people. First, I'm going to go my Aunt Kathy. I was about 12 years old when she passed away. She just showed me how to live a godly life, even though she went through cancer. And I think she fought it for like 3 or 4 years. And she just was one of those people that you wanted to always look up to because she was just such a strong woman. And I had absolutely all my love was to her. She was just one of those people that, is always there for you, always there for advice. And then she's just like another mother figure, And then my Uncle Tim and her just were perfect together, and it was just fun to be around them. And then the other group of people that really took a big impact on my life, on and off the court, is Samantha and Andrew Smith. And Andrew Smith just passed away recently, maybe about 3 weeks ago. And he went through some of the rarest forms of cancer, and then went through a bone marrow, and it ended up not working, but he also showed tremendous strength and just wasn't anything worried about him. There was actually times where during his stages of his cancer, he was supporting other people that was having problems such as his or worse than his while he was going through it himself. And then, I just remember a couple times, like he would come out and play basketball with me and my nephew Jordan, and we would just shoot around, play some horse, and there's nothing but good words that came out of his mouth, and it really made an impact of where even I'm going to college at to play basketball. And then, his wife, Samantha Smith, is one of the strongest people you'll ever meet in your life. They did a thing at the Butler game, I think, 3 or 4 days after he passed away, and she was willing enough to go up there and speak for her husband and for Butler, for the community. There's just no way that anybody else, I think, could have done that other than her. And they just become really, really close friends. You know, you couldn't ask for two better people to be a part of your life, and no matter if they come into your life early or late. And then, you know, Andrew just always, I remember the words he would always say when we played basketball. He'd be like, "I'm gonna win." Even though that he lost his battle with cancer, he still won.
Growing up, we all have different people who play major parts in our lives. I personally had quite a few role models growing up who had a major impact on my life. My parents were probably the biggest role models in my life. My mom taught me how to treat people and taught me like a lot of stuff in general. My father taught me how to deal with hands-on problems and a bunch of common knowledge. He made me kind of figure things out on myself, on my own a lot. And then my grandparents, I mean, they taught my parents, so in turn they kind of taught me. My grandfather, specifically on my father's side, he wasn't always in the best situation. He was kind of a different character, didn't always make the best decisions, but I always liked him. He was always funny and he always kept me entertained. And my mom always told me how whenever I came along, he'd try to change his ways. So I respected him for that. He'd try to change for me, and it made me feel pretty good. And it was nice whenever he was around with my dad, and whenever my dad's friends were around with him. We'd always just have a lot of fun together. Always play some pool and stuff. Always had a lot of fun. So it really hit me hard whenever he had a stroke early in my 3rd grade year. I would have been about 9 years old. He had a stroke, and it took a lot of mobility in the left side of his body away. We had to do a lot to take care of him, help him out a lot, and then from then it just kind of got worse. Later on in my 3rd grade year, a little later, he had another stroke, which affected his memory. He couldn't really recognize people, even his family. He wouldn't know what to do. He wouldn't know who they were. It hit my parents, myself, hit us all pretty hard. Just my family in general had a rough time with it. But what gets me more is that whenever we went in 2 weeks after he started not being able to recognize people, my parents took me to see him, and he actually recognized me. I was the first person he ever recognized. And it seemed like from then on, he would start getting better. He was starting to recognize people, have more mobility. He was able to go home with us and stay with us for a while. And then a little later, we were gonna take him in one day to get his test results. And the same day we were gonna take him in, he had a seizure that morning. And we took him to the hospital, and he died of internal bleeding that day. Whenever we got the test results after he died, it turned out he had advanced stage lung cancer. And that in turn caused him to have all the strokes and the internal bleeding, which eventually led to him dying. So I guess I kind of know what it's like. It was a rough year for my entire family. I mean, it still is. You miss him every day. I think a lot about how it'd be if he were still here to watch me go through these milestones in life, like graduation, high school basketball. I feel like he'd just make it a lot more entertaining for me because he was always a funny guy. So I know what it's like. It sucks. Whenever you lose someone close to you, a part of you lose a part of yourself as well. And I guess that's what cancer does to a lot of people all the time. It just takes away from them.
My name is Jake Wilkes, and cancer has affected me my life from starting with my Nana. She got it last summer and she had it in her lungs. She had like a couple lumps in her lungs and didn't tell anyone until like 4 years she had it, and so it got even worse. And then she went into healthcare and stuff, went to a retirement home, spent like 3 months in there, said the cancer was gone after that, and then she stayed at my aunt's house. And then they said it came back. A few months later, she passed from it because if she told anybody sooner, she would have been safe, but she didn't tell anyone because she was scared that they'd panic, and then she finally did. She wasn't looking too well, but that one's not. That was like a long time ago, but the real one is my dad. He got that last September. Told me a story. I was on my way back from a Halloween party, my friend Marquise, and my mom sent me a text and said, "Your dad has cancer, leukemia." And I just started crying right there. And then Marquise said, "What's wrong?" And like I just kept choking, and I said, "My dad has cancer." He said, started offering me stuff. "You want me to take you to the hospital? Want me to take you to the hospital?" And I was like, "No, it's fine. Just take me home." And then the next day I went to go see him. He was looking like perfectly fine. Like he didn't look anything wrong with him. He said he was doing good, but then a few weeks in, he looked like crap. Wasn't looking too. I lost his hair, coughing a lot, and I was really worried because I thought I was going to lose my dad. And then like a few weeks passed. Some family members came to visit. He said he was doing okay. He was getting up, walking around. And while I was there, he told me a story about like when he heard it, because the doctor called and said that he had leukemia. Like my dad's never cried in his life, and like you could like put a nail through his hand when he still wouldn't even cry. But when the doctor told him that, he said, "What about the boys?" And he just started crying. And like when I heard that, that just like broke me apart. And then a month passed finally, saying the only thing that really hit him hard was the boredom at the hospital. And he was just like bored out of his mind. He just wasn't getting his exercise in, and then doctors, like his legs were all red, swollen. He just did not look good. And then like for some reason, doctor said he's all good and he can check out. Checked out, and then he had to go back because they found more in his blood clots and in his hip. He went back for a few more weeks, still getting chemo treatments, and then he just looked like skin and bones. It was really bad. Legs were still red, swollen, and then checked out again, and he was not feeling too hot, and then he just didn't go to work for a few weeks. He stayed home, did a little exercising from there on, and then today he's still getting back in those 4-foot high attics for a 64-year-old. And his foot, and on those 2-inch wide beams, crawling on his hands and knees, and I don't know how I can still do it because I can still barely do it now. And he's now just still doing what he did